Hey everybody, welcome back. We are getting ready to do some more reactions. This is to Keep Sweet, Pray and Obey. This is episode 4. So the last episode, and we've caught Warren Jeffries. So now to find, or Warren Jeffs, not Jeffries. Now to find out what ends up happening. I know he got some prison time. I don't know what charges actually took. I don't know who else got in trouble. I don't know if he is now out of prison or not. So, all of this stuff going on. So, we're going to watch it. And then at the end of this, I'm also going, after I talk about the show itself, I did find a YouTube video. It's Miss Mojo. They're not always accurate, but we'll see what they have to say as far as accuracies and kind of go from there. This is JoJo. She likes the new filming spot. She can lay closer to me. I'm exhausted. Just finished practicing putting up my new canopy I have for art festivals, and it's heavy and it's big and it's hot out. I don't know if I'm getting kisses or getting the salt licked off me. So we practiced doing that. I've got a little bit of a migraine. I did take some migraine medicine, so I'm just trying to chill. Hopefully it goes away so I can do some painting, so I can have some stuff for the festivals. I've got one Labor Day weekend, and then the first Saturday in December, I have a festival as well. So I'm trying to make sure I have enough stuff for those 2 days, besides the stuff for the store. So, yeah, throat gurgles. I think that's everything to catch up on. So let's go ahead and find out what happens to FLDS, the people within FLDS, because some of them are true believers, some of them just it's not sitting right, but they haven't left, and some of them it's not sitting right, but they don't know how to get out of it. So let's see what happened. So the following episode contains graphic descriptions of sexual abuse involving minors, which may be disturbing to some viewers. I knew that was coming, so my sound hasn't been working right.
They gathered us all together and told us that the prophet had just been arrested and to pray for our prophet's deliverance.
It's sickening that men like Warren Jeffs would take advantage of people like the lady that was just speaking. I forget her name. I always feel bad for those who are diehard believers. And on one hand, you get kind of frustrated because you're like, what makes you think things should be this way? But then on the other side of it, it's the whole grooming and brainwashing and all that kind of stuff that happens. And so even though logically I know what's going on, emotionally, it's just so hard to understand how people could be in that situation. I talked about with the Sandusky scandal. For those of you that don't know, I went to Penn State, and so very involved with all of the news that was coming out for the Sandusky scandal. And, on the one hand, when there was an article about his wife not knowing what had been going on and all that kind of stuff. And, on the logical side, I understood, it's because they're really good at keeping things hidden and all this kind of stuff. It's just like serial killers with families and all that kind of stuff. It's like, how could the family not know? Logically, I understand. Emotionally, it's just like, oh, how could you not know? So it's this battle inside, and it sickens me that those type of people will take advantage of the people around them.
Touching down at Purgatory Jail.
Oh, it's actually called Purgatory, huh?
The Lord dictates these words to my mind and heart. Farewell forever, you who are worthy, for Zion.
So he's sending a
For I
message,
will not be.
and he knows
You
he's
have.
doomed.
They filed everything under pseudonyms so that my identity could be protected.
As they should.
There were all of these TV crews, cameras, and an entire SWAT team.
Wow.
There were even snipers up on the rocks above.
They must have thought some people would retaliate.
There had been rumblings that there were people that knew who we were, and they were willing to do whatever was necessary to protect the prophet. There was still a part of me that wanted to shrink under that stare.
I was going to say it's
Kept my shoulders back,
kind of
kept my
intimidation.
gaze dead on with him, and waited for him to break eye contact and not me.
It's like a cat,
He
and
finally
who has more
shook
power?
his head and dropped his gaze.
He facilitated the rape of a child.
Right.
The state calls Elisa Wall.
And it makes sense to turn off the camera
Knowing that every word that I was saying was going to be scrutinized.
and recorded.
Stood up and he
That attacking the victim backfires almost every time, and so I don't think that that was
Yeah.
the right choice for them to make, but they did. And perhaps they did because they didn't have much else to work with, and the story that Elisa
It
gave
makes them seem
was
cruel,
incredibly powerful.
which they are. Well, the attorneys are just doing what they're supposed to do unless they're part of the whole thing, but
We, the jury, find that defendant Warren Steve Jess is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of the crime of rape as an accomplice. Dated this 25th day of September 2000.
so at least one count guilty. 5 years to life.
the irony and the beauty
That's a big span.
of it is that women in a society like the FLDS are second-class citizens. And yet, women are the ones that stood up to that man.
Warren Jess
Damn
is now
straight.
winning.
Everybody was hoping that this is it. You're going to throw this guy away forever. But, you know, the law doesn't work this way.
I was going to say, we're too early into this episode.
Conspirator to this rape.
But we're talking about people that have dedicated their lives to one man.
Yeah.
And one woman who had accusations against him wasn't going to change a lifetime of belief.
And it's not going to change overnight.
So he has means of getting information out of the prison.
And we
Yeah.
must look to Heavenly Father.
Warren used that as proof that in the outside world, apostates are trying to take down the priesthood.
The only ones that become gods.
The outside world are the bad
The rest
guys.
of the world are those that can be trusted. Sweet Spirit of prayer.
Now, Texas hasn't done anything just yet, right?
That calls me from a world of
We've got Utah, Arizona, and
Even
Texas
though Warren
involved.
Jess was in prison,
And it was Utah he was
still
convicted for.
prophet. I think I associated his voice on the phone more as like the voice of God.
The FLDS compound outside of El Dorado,
Which
Texas, has
increases
grown
his power.
significantly. And then there's a phone call, comes out of the blue, and it's the voice of sounds like a young woman.
So this is in Texas.
So that's when we went ahead to do a welfare check on this girl.
How did she get a phone?
The story is that the Texas Rangers eventually traced the phone call and figured out it was a lady in Colorado who was making a hoax call.
Oh,
But at that point, it didn't matter.
they've got probable
CPS
cause now.
investigators had found evidence of underage girls who were pregnant.
I was just standing there when we got a knock. I think I was 5 at this time. I didn't know what was going on.
Gotta be
I didn't know that
scary.
those
It's just a lot of strange people everywhere.
A lot of paddy wagons, a lot of vans, a lot of SWAT.
We were
I imagine they had the
surrounded.
SBI and the
We were
FBI
actually surrounded
involved.
by
And this is traumatic for all
The
of
judge
them.
ordered those kids to be taken off the ranch, and suddenly Texas had a tiger by the tail.
And the tiger will bite you if you don't get a good hold on it.
to a big bus.
when I realized I didn't get to see my mom, that's when it hit me, and that's when I started crying.
So where are they going to house all the kids?
There's an officer at every door. And
So they're kind of
if anybody
setting up
tried
an
to go out,
emergency
they would yell
shelter
and,
type of scenario. Hopefully they started with the youngest and then went to
story
the
that they were
oldest
putting
of the
out
kids.
But Warren used the mothers to garner a lot of sympathy from the media.
So Meredith Ferrera.
Silky voice that said, yes, whatever you say.
That keep
Just
sweet.
Keep sweet.
Yeah.
It was fake. To see her on Larry King, I know of no underage brides.
Did
It
she
was absolutely infuriating.
report them to Larry King's offices?
We had had years of watching families be shredded and taken away, children being taken away from their mothers, women being taken away from the husbands.
Yeah,
So
it is a bit of an
something that was
oxymoron.
new within the FLDS.
On the floor, just crying my eyes out.
I still want to know how
And
she's
then
related
one
to
day,
Joe.
my husband, Seth, said, and I need you to come right away.
She go looking for him?
Just tell the story that you were mental and incapacitated and you let your children go to another state. And that wasn't true at all. I
was
never
gonna
gave
say.
permission. She looked up at me and she was like, who are you? And I walked in and I went to hug her and she was really scared of me.
Heartbreaking for a mama.
They couldn't handle the political heat
And that
from
sucks.
grabbing that many kids, and CPS just wiped their hands of it.
We knew that there was more going on, and that was very hard to take.
So are they
The
able to
custody
continue
battle
their
for the
investigation?
children, that was one thing.
I have a person that I have been communicating with, and I'm not going to go any further than that.
Is that
Informant
Mike?
is a former member of the
Oh.
church.
And so we were flown down there by the sheriff's office.
The sisters working together.
When we got into Texas, they took us directly to the
I've
ranch.
been a bit quiet.
From what I was told, he was praying for our destruction, that lightning would strike us when we went in. But we were able to make entry.
Without being struck. That's
We found some winding stairs.
for baptisms, I bet.
There was an area that was an arched entry, and it had a real pretty
Looks like it
curtains
was
over
an office.
As you go through there, there is another inner room, and we discovered a bed in there. It was a
Yeah.
tall bed. It
You
was
don't
actually
expect a
like an
bed in a
altar where you'd
church.
carry a person and put them onto that bed, and it was about waist or above high. And towards the back of the basement area was a big vault.
Going to go in from underneath, break the concrete up.
And then they had
They
broken
got through. Jackpot. Now how does the public react?
Oneness is the priesthood in the heavens. I see hands upon your head.
Temple bed instructions for Warren S. Jeffs. The bed will be a size big enough for me to lay on. It will be covered with a sheet, but it will have a plastic cover to protect the mattress from what will happen on it.
So they can wipe away any evidence. Makes you so mad.
Polygamist leader Warren Jeffs facing a new trial on sex crime charges.
Warren Jeffs extradited
Okay, I didn't know there was
from
more than
Utah
one.
to Texas to face a felony child sexual assault charge.
Makes sense though, since it's in different states.
Because after those 10 women heard that audio tape, they would have jumped over the railings and killed Warren with their bare hands. And that was that tape.
I believe
Jeffs
that.
was found guilty on both counts.
It was that Warren was involved in conducting the marriages of 67 underage girls to FLDS men.
Now were those men
And Warren
prosecuted?
had himself 78 wives.
Oh, just a couple of years ago.
I'm gonna have a blackberry boysenberry smoothie.
You want whipped cream?
Sure.
So they've turned it into kind of a touristy kind of thing?
Probably over a year ago, he was still running the church, and the people that believe in Warren still listen to him.
Okay.
They all have family members that they haven't seen for years.
Because they left?
My mother
Or were
was still
taken
in
away?
the FLDS.
I thought I was further along than I was. And you have these
Oh,
moments
so that's
as an
not
adult where
Ruby,
you're
that's
like, I know
Elisa.
nothing. I know nothing.
Did I realize that last time? I don't know. Good to see them doing well. When did Joe leave? Because Joe must have left at some point.
Just open wide up. All my stuff just
That has to be a
tumbling
reenactment.
out. I have to start all over, brand new, brand spanking new.
That was a sign. It's hard to start over. Is that it? No stats or anything, huh? So it's disconcerting to learn that the church itself can't talk anymore. Is still. I was going to say thriving, but it's not really thriving. But it's just concerning to hear that it's still going on. And I knew it wouldn't happen overnight for most. For Alicia, apparently it did. But and I'm glad the light bulb went off for her. But it's sad to know that there's still folks that believe every word they're being told. And I wish doubt would be allowed. That's one of the things with religion. Some of the religions you're allowed to question stuff and talk about things, talk it out kind of stuff. And, well, how did we get to this point with this? That kind of stuff. I can respect religions that do that. These religions that you can't question anything, well, the reason why you can't question it is because it doesn't hold up. But the only way for it to keep going is to have those rules about you're not allowed to question it. So I wish the seed of doubt would get sown a little bit more for those that are still involved with the FLDS. I would hope that they could find a church that still follows most of the accepted teachings and differentiated. I mean, even the LDS church, which has condemned the FLDS, even, what did they say, 100 years ago? It changed as far as polygamy and all that. Even they learned, you know what, we need to change. And that's the thing with religion is it's constantly evolving. And part of that is because we're evolving as a society. Stuff that exists today did not exist back then. And there's stuff that did exist back then that does exist today, but you've got to be able to evolve. It's no more about got to populate the earth and that kind of thing. We're kind of overpopulated right now in some areas at least. So it's no longer the reasoning for not spilling the seed and all that kind of stuff. you know, you got to evolve. And as society learns what's acceptable and what's not acceptable, you know, a lot of the religions parallel each other as far as what's acceptable and not acceptable. And society as a whole takes it under consideration, talks about it, discusses it, changes if needed, keeps it if needed, all that kind of stuff. It should always be looked at as a guideline and not a rule. But places like FLDS, it's the rule, no ifs, ands, or buts, and that's disheartening. So I'm glad that Jeff's is still in prison. I'm sad that his message is still getting out. I'm sad that there are other men that are probably still carrying out his orders, whatever they are. And unfortunately, they're going to be even more careful if it's continuing to have child brides and all that kind of stuff. It was in the news recently about one of the states. I forget which state. I was trying to think, but one of the states just recently okayed child brides with parental permission. It's like no. It's hard enough agreeing to 16 with parental permission, but this was younger than 16. 18, they're 18, they're considered legal adults. They can do what they want. 16 to 18, I think if they truly love each other and all that kind of stuff, they can wait. But I remember being 16 and being head over heels in love and all that kind of stuff. But it, it's it's one of those things that I don't hear a good rationale. Now, it's if it's the 16-year-old's choice and there's other factors involved, I don't want to say they should get married because they're pregnant and having a baby or anything like that. That should not be the reason for people getting married. But there's also economical advantages to being married and stuff like that. So, I can't judge too quickly, but under 16, definitely no. It's I'd prefer we didn't have it for 16 to 18 for some states. Uh, all states no for the 16 to 18, but not much of a choice for me. At any rate, let me get out of this hole I've dug myself. Let's go ahead and watch and see what Miss Mojo says about it and see if what they have to say is accurate or not and kind of go from there. I don't know if it'll necessarily be all the facts. It might just be the top shocking stuff. In fact, it's titled The Horrifying True Story of Keep Sweet, Pray, and Obey. So it's probably just going to be the top 10 aspects from the series and from real life kind of information.
Warren Jeffs has been particularly agitated today.
So it looks like we're getting some of the stuff that wasn't in the show. So maybe getting some new stuff.
Although over a
I don't
decade has
remember that
passed,
one lady
the
at least.
FLDS has experienced renewed public scrutiny in the wake of the 2022 Netflix docuseries. The Mormon Church had advised against polygamy in 1890, so
And since we're talking about polygamy, I can't remember if I said it during any of the episodes. I don't have an issue with polygamy itself as long as all parties are consenting, all parties are adults, and, that type of thing. I don't care who loves who. It's the underage stuff that's the issue. So I agree with the attorney that, even though it's illegal, you shouldn't necessarily prosecute just for polygamy itself.
now Colorado City, Arizona in the
That's a
1930s.
basket weave, I believe.
The FLDS.
And their hair had to be drawn back in a bun.
Miss Mojo, that's not a bun. Those are not buns. Those are braids.
In many cases, the men they were married to were significantly older. Warren Jeffs arranged all the marriages
abusive.
and controlled physical contact between husbands and wives.
Warren Jeffs was kicking young boys out of the FLDS.
We didn't hear anything more about the young boys. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't there in most states a policy about a child under the age of 18 not being provided the basics, shelter, clothing, food? If you just abandon them, isn't that a charge in and of itself, whether it's child neglect or whatever it might be? So, did anything more ever happen with the boys?
Instructing his followers to send him money that was brought to him by his brother Seth. Supposedly Jeffs,
that's
who had
so
fled with
angering,
some of his
too.
wives,
All
used
that
that
money.
cash on extravagant trips and fancy parties. Ultimately, he was arrested during a
hypocriticalness of
routine
it.
traffic check in Las Vegas, arresting everyone, including 236 children. 150 were not
Wow.
returned to their parents for over 2 years.
Do you all remember
Yeah.
the day of the raid?
Yes.
I heard there were men with guns. Did you see people with guns?
In April 2008,
I like Oprah, but sometimes the way things are presented it's so skewed. So getting little kids to acknowledge the guns, it's playing right into the hands of Warren Jeffs.
Federal law enforcement agents raided the
Not that it's
community's
not
compound
true.
in West Texas. Later that year, 12 FLDS men were charged with offenses related to underage marriages, and 6 were eventually convicted of felony.
Okay, so 12 others, half of them were convicted. That answered one question.
The church's compound in Texas was seized by the state in 2014, having been deemed contraband as a place that had been used to facilitate criminal conduct.
Basically, the government
they
went
tear
in
it down?
and there's no FLDS living there at all.
Another
Good.
of Jeff's compounds in
What'd they
Phoenix,
do with it,
Arizona,
though?
was obtained by his former wife, Brielle Decker. She transformed the mansion into a refuge for people in need, including
good.
former members of the FLDS.
So if they're doing it as a refuge, are they working with local law enforcement and allowing them to have free range so that they know nothing is reprising itself, that kind of stuff? They didn't really kind of get into that, which, I mean, this isn't investigative journalism, but if anybody knows, I'd be interested in knowing that. Okay, so that was Miss Mojo's part on the FLDS and where they're at now. Like I said, I realize not everything with Mojo and Miss Mojo are accurate. So if you all want to give any other important aspects that I should know, that sort of thing, that would be great to know. Yeah. I noticed my pumpkins are showing. It's not pumpkin season yet, but I bought those today. So I was like, well, go ahead and put them on the couch. It's August 12th. So just to give you an idea of what day this is. I was trying to get ahead on recording because the show that's following this is Hercules and Xena, and the first 5 Hercules episodes are actually movies, and they're going to take some time to edit. So, especially because I have to actually watch them. I'm used to editing based on the vocal track, and I can't do that with these. So, yeah, it's going to take a lot longer to edit than normal. So, if you all are interested in that series, I will see you there. If not, that's fine. Thank you all for joining me on this journey, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.